Good afternoon to you. Comes against the backdrop of this dire warning by the International Monetary Fund overnight that the world is facing something akin to the 1929 global depression. What are we expecting in terms of response from the Cabinet later today?
Well, quite a number of things, Jeremy. There's a lot at stake at the moment. The Cabinet has to discuss, for example, whether to ease certain regulations and to allow certain or very specific categories of business to begin trading. And if so, what would be the implications for this management of the pandemic? So that is what was supposed to preoccupy a lot of their time. But there's also, of course, an acknowledgement that this pandemic is to require a lot more money than we have in the kitty. The question then becomes, where is the money going to come from? Now, is, for example, the Public Enterprises Minister's response to the people who are responsible for SAA part of that exercise? In other words, government has made up its mind that it is going to allow South African Airways and South African Express to effectively die. And it's quite interesting because I was looking again at the statement that the Treasury released yesterday. They are talking, when they talk about the reorganization of the economy going forward. They talk about, in fact, when they talk about the economy going forward, they talk about the reorganization of state-owned enterprises. And the word that is used there with specific reference to South African Airways and South African Express is closure. Now, is that the decision that the Cabinet is going or is supposed to take today? That and a lot more issues is what is on the table.
For you, government has been fairly opaque and understandably about going to the International Monetary Fund for assistance. At what point do we reach the fulcrum where we have no choice but to do this? Are we close to that yet?
Well, that question was put to the Finance Minister a few times yesterday during that online briefing. And he stated categorically that the government has no appetite of going to the IMF or any other such institution for that matter at the moment, where there will be such conditions as the structural adjustment programs that the IMFs of the world tend to impose, that they are only going. In fact, there was a conversation between government and the IMF yesterday morning. We got to hear that from the minister and members of his department yesterday. But that conversation, we got to understand, was exploratory at this stage, and it had to do, or the minister said that it will only focus on COVID-19 related assistance that the country can get, and they will not touch anything that would have anything to do with structural adjustment programs. And they're doing the same with the BRICS Bank, they're doing the same with the African Development Bank, he told us.
Just quickly, Voyu, is it likely that we'll hear something from these cabinet deliberations tonight?
At this stage, the state apparatus that looks after those kinds of briefings has not as yet been activated. That's as far as I know, which was about 20 minutes ago when I last checked. But there is a recognition that the country would like to hear from the government as soon as major decisions are being taken.
All right, political editor Voyu Mvoko.